From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
You get knocked down, but you get back up again. That's, to me, the best part of being in the farming industry.
The orange industry hit hard in one Florida county, bouncing back.
Farmers near Des Moines, Iowa are not ready to plant just yet. We explain as we take you in the field ahead in the show.
As the president continues to talk trade.
We're in massive trade negotiations, as you know, because our farmers haven't been treated properly.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. We begin with the latest on trade talks on several fronts. First, with China. President Trump reiterating that progress is being made toward a very comprehensive trade deal with China, emphasizing how it will help farmers and ranchers. He talked about the negotiations during a roundtable discussion on the economy in Burnsville, Minnesota.
Where the farmers have not been treated well, for 15 years you can go back and it's just a graph downward. Well, we're changing that. You wait till you see what's going to happen. So we'll see if it all works out with China, but we're doing well in the negotiation. It's very comprehensive in the sense that it's a very complete negotiation. We're talking about theft of intellectual property. We're talking about so many other things, but we're also talking about the farmers and the ranchers and people that have not been treated fairly by really the world.
Reuters reporting negotiations include lifting a ban on U.S. poultry and buying more pork. However, it's not likely to ease restrictions on the growth-promoting ractopamine. Iowa State ag economists say they expect China to import about 4 to 6 million tons of pork in 2020. But some farmers are concerned a possible end of the trade war with China could leave them worse off. Bloomberg reporting some producers alarmed by indications the Trump administration would accept China buying U.S. products like soybeans and pork without a promise to lift retaliatory tariffs. Now, insiders telling Bloomberg Beijing is considering a request from the U.S. to shift some tariffs on key ag products to other products. President Trump has vowed to maintain some of the tariffs in order to maintain enforcement of any deal. As for trade talks with Japan, both sides say they're conducting negotiations in line with the agreement made between Japan's Prime Minister and President Trump back in September. The talks, which started Monday, focused mostly on goods. The talks between the U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Japan's Economy Minister were labeled good and frank. National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow was asked about those talks with the Japanese.
Are we looking at separate deals with the Japanese, breaking out agriculture as a temporary fix?
You know, Ambassador Lighthizer is walking through that. They're in the talks. The talks are thick and hot and heavy, and I think that's terrific. Japan's a great ally of ours. I don't want to comment on outcomes or any details. I just think it's always healthy when we're talking.
Japan's economic minister saying the discussions were focused on common ground to move the talks forward. A second round of talks took place on Tuesday. Meanwhile, negotiators with the EU have gotten approval to hold trade discussions with the United States. EU Trade Chief Cecilia Malmström saying this week she wants to finalize the negotiations before the end of this European Commission, which is in office through October. Two big hurdles stand in the way. A demand that any negotiation result in the U.S. dropping tariffs imposed on steel and aluminum last year, and that talks include agriculture. The EU is adamant ag will not be part of the discussion. U.S. officials say it should. President Trump also touching on that during his economic roundtable in Minnesota.
If you look at the European Union with the barriers they have to agricultural products and cars and so many other things, but the agricultural products, they barely take our agricultural products, and yet they can sell Mercedes-Benz and they can sell anything they want in our country, including their farm products, and it's not fair.
Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley saying this week it's likely any deal is rejected by Congress if it doesn't include agriculture.
The I80 Planning Tour, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
According to the latest information from USDA, Iowa is yet to start planting. Typically, at least 2% of the crop is in the ground by now. And for farmers in central Iowa, it may be a while. AgDay's Betsy Gibbon explains in today's I80 Planning Tour.
Roland Schnell has a schedule to finish field work by nightfall.
Again, I'm fortunate, and I hope by late tonight I'll have all my anhydrous on.
The Jasper County, Iowa farmer says he is not receiving as much rain as other areas of the state and is hoping the ground will be both fit and dry enough for planting close to Easter.
If the whole field was like this, I would not be in it. The soil is plenty moist. You could see it will pack, and that's not good. It should just crumble.
Schnell says he's not too far behind with spring field work, but yet a lot of farmers in this county still have fall field work left to do.
I would say approximately 40% of the anhydrous is on, which means maybe 50%, which means over half of the anhydrous needs to be applied yet in this area.
While those farmers may have some late-minute acreage decisions to make, Schnell made his, all due to price.
I normally rotate approximately 50-50 between corn and soybeans. Because of the prices and the potential return with corn over soybeans, with the market outlooks, I am planting more corn.
A decision of altering acres he hasn't done too many times during his 40-plus years of farming.
Outlooks for the soybean market scare me a lot. We have an oversupply around the world. Compounding that is an issue with China that we all know about. And I don't personally see much future in the soybean markets in 2019 crop.
Economists say he's not alone in his thinking.
There's a big difference in what's going to happen in global trade if we're going to have those markets jeopardized out there from the United States. So obviously that's going to back up a lot of marketplaces here into Iowa. And so when you think about some of the basis levels, it's not just talking about the price on the Board of Trade, it's also talking about what's that basis level. And we've had some of the widest basis that we've had.
As for now, Schnell pushes on with his plan, a timetable he tries to control in the field as he rides the markets as best he can.
We've got the next year or two might be kind of tough, but it's going to come back.
Reporting in Jasper County, Iowa, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
It's a rite of passage for many farm kids. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen shows us today's crop comment. Cindy.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. There's nothing like driving your new wheels to school, right? Well, check out this video shared with us on Twitter. Allison Howie of North Carolina shared this video of her son saying, "Best day of my son's life. He gets to drive a tractor to school." You can tell he was excited to get there. Let's take a look at our wind speed forecast as we head through the day today. We're going to be seeing some breezy conditions, especially in the nation's midsection. You can see how those kind of blossom out as we head through the afternoon hours. Parts of the Four Corners region and the northern High Plains also on the windy side as well. Things start to slacken off a little bit for us overnight, except for along a cold front, a developing system in the plains. We're going to continue to see breezy conditions there, and gets a lot breezier as we head through much of the nation's midsection and even into the east as we head through our Thursday. I'll have a lot more in the forecast coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the recent weather impacts on cattle and the outlook for prices this spring and summer. And later, the orange industry in Florida is struggling to overcome the citrus greening disease, but new hope emerges today in the country. A growing problem for corn usage. Lower gasoline consumption means less ethanol usage. New analysis is expecting gasoline consumption to plateau and then fall in the decade ahead. Ag economist Scott Irwin of the University of Illinois says the impact will be felt by U.S. corn producers. About 38% of the U.S. corn crop in 2018, 5.5 billion bushels, was used in making ethanol. He says if gasoline consumption drops 18% over the next 10 years as projected by the Department of Energy, the market for corn for ethanol could shrink by 930 million bushels. Soybeans dropped on concerns about demand for U.S. supplies, with big crops coming in from both Argentina and Brazil. Here's an update from the CME.
We're going to talk about the grain markets, and we've been under pressure for the most part all day, and fairly significant amount of pressure for soybeans and for wheat, and corn playing along as well. Not a whole lot of new news here today, although the trade does seem to be getting very frustrated with the idea of hopefully having a trade deal with China sometime in the relatively near future. But also from a technical standpoint, you know, soybeans have been trying to get up and over the downward trending line for quite some time and not been able to do that, so finally gave up, and technical selling taking effect here today. You've got cattle trying to advance to the upside. Boxed beef prices still really hanging in very well, suggesting that demand is stronger at this time of year than it normally would be. And with warmer temperatures coming up, maybe we're going to start the grilling season a little bit early. We actually had cash cattle trade a little bit higher at the end of last week, so that is also supporting. And in a seasonal time frame where we normally would be going down, we seem to be really very resilient, both in the futures and also in the cash. Hog market here today down just a little bit. Talk that China is talking to Brazil about increasing their imports of Brazilian product could possibly be taken away from us, especially with the 62% tariff that they have on us right now until a trade deal is reached. Again, this is Ted Seifert of Zaner Ag Hedge coming to you from the CME floor.
Joe Vakovic with Standard Grain, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Joe, let's talk about the cattle market because we've had a couple big storms. It's been a pretty rough winter. Does that play or have any dynamic play into our cattle market at this point?
I think it has or did help the market at one point in time. Futures have set back a little bit, but we've seen some positive things. I mean, the cash market in cattle has held together, I mean, in the mid 120s here, and it's set back a little bit the last couple weeks, but still a generally strong trade. We've seen a nice grind higher in the boxed beef market. Export sales this last week were not that great, but in general, demand seems to be very good. We've had several months in a row, I think a really strong string of record export business in beef. And you look at the chart, the technicals look good to me. I mean, we've set back from the highs, and maybe the bull market got ahead of itself a little bit. But I'd probably argue that both cattle and feeder cattle are still in bull market territory, essentially. Okay. I'd also probably make an argument, and this is maybe not the best reason to be friendly, but I think that this African swine fever thing is just friendly to the protein markets in general. Maybe even you go down to the retail level. Say you've got a pork chop and a steak. If pork chop's more than the steak, what does that do? I think that beef is going to maintain some sort of premium here, regardless of what happens in the hog situation. I could be wrong about that, but that's kind of the way that I've thought about it.
Yeah. Do you feel like maybe the situation with African swine fever could start to pull more demand, and not just on exports, but here at home?
Well, we hope so, and a lot of this has to do with the many different trade battles that we're involved in right now, not only with China, but you got to keep in mind that the issues with Mexico and Canada are still, I mean, they've been resolved in theory, but they haven't been signed by Congress. Right. There's also issues with the EU now that are starting to emerge with these tariffs, or I'm sorry, subsidies on airline manufacturers. So we've got a lot of, and then you got the TPP also, which has kind of moved on without us, essentially, the way it looks.
Right.
We've got a lot of uncertainty and a lot of issues in regard to trade that could become problems down the road. All
right, well, lots to watch, a very dynamic market. Appreciate it as always, Joe. We'll be back for more AgDay in just a minute.
For more information about Standard Grain and its services, call Joe at 312-462-4438.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets8 to 31313 to get started.
Welcome back to AgDay. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen here looking at the root zone moisture map. And Cindy, this continues to change and evolve through the spring.
It really is. And we have had a lot of areas where we've seen a lot of rain and big changes on there, but then it dries up just as quickly sometimes. Let's take a look. We've seen a lot of rain in the southeast, and so we've seen this dryness kind of going away in much of Florida, also parts of the Gulf Coast, the central Gulf Coast. The areas that we still really need to watch, though, are right here in the southwest, southwestern Arizona, southwestern Texas. You've had some dryness there, and it's gotten a little bit drier right in the far northern plains, just kind of out of the big reaches of the blizzard that we had last week. Let's take a look at what we have in store for us this week. In fact, we're going to start with some rain in some of those drier areas in North Dakota, and we might even see a little bit of moisture down in parts of Arizona as well. Putting this into motion, this whole system is going to be gaining some strength, and what that's going to be meaning is a chance for showers and thunderstorms. Some of those could be strong or severe as we get through Oklahoma, Texas, parts of Kansas, Missouri, even Arkansas, Louisiana, even as we head into Thursday. So heavy heavy rain, hail, strong winds, all possible with these storms as this whole system pushes off to the east. We get a chance to dry out in the west except for the extreme Pacific Northwest. Now as we get through our Thursday, we're going to continue to see a chance for some heavy rain all along this front, but especially around the Gulf Coast region. And then the warm front itself is also going to bring some heavier rain, maybe even snow in the far northern reaches, but that's going to be really far north for the most part into the Canadian areas, and we're going to be seeing a little bit of rain in the backside of that on the plains. Here's your precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours. Most of what we've seen have been in the northern plains and out into the Four Corners region, but you add the next 24 hours and you really see where the rain from the warm front is, and then the cold front. Boy, we're going to be seeing a large area of rain, over an inch or even 2. Snowfall mainly in those higher elevations in the Rockies over the next 24 hours. As we look at our temperatures, pretty warm in the south central United States and even into the southeast, even mild up into parts of the northern plains. It does cool down though tomorrow as that whole system continues to push off to the east. We'll see 30s and 40s in the overnight hours there, and then much cooler, especially in parts of the plains states. And then you can see that trough moving along on the jet stream. That's going to continue moving into the eastern part of the country, and then after that moves through over the weekend, we start to see a little bit more of a somewhat zonal flow with slightly warmer air moving into even the northern parts of the country. That's your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. McGill, Nevada, sunny and warmer for you today with a high of 57 degrees. Sandstone, Minnesota, breezy and much cooler with rain with a high of 49. And Edgefield, South Carolina, mostly sunny, high of 81.
We're importing more vegetables into the U.S., but why? We'll take a look next in news from our partners over at the Packer. And later, orange production is forecast to recover somewhat this year. The battle against Wanglong Bing, or citrus greening, in the country. New numbers from the U.S. Department of Agriculture show the import share of U.S. fresh vegetable supply continues to rise. In fact, it has increased for the 15th consecutive year. Imports accounting for about 31% of the total fresh vegetable supply in 2018. That's up from 29% in 2017. The highest import share was asparagus at 98%. More than 60% of the U.S. fresh tomato supply in 2018 was imported. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers at Pharr, Texas found something surprising in a shipment of fresh honeydew melons, $6 million worth of meth. The April 12th seizure at the Pharr-Reynosa International Bridge cargo facility included 304 pounds of the drug. It was found hidden in a trailer. The tractor trailer was seized. The case under investigation by Homeland Security investigation agents. All right, citrus screening. It's the fear of growers everywhere, but one Florida county is fighting back against it. See what they're doing next in the country.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Orange groves in one part of Florida are experiencing a recovery after dealing with a destructive bacteria called citrus greening. Andrew McCrae shows us how producers are now coping.
Just west of Orlando, Florida, you will find Polk County. This is an important place for one agricultural crop, says Abby Crawford.
Florida ranks first in citrus production, and Polk County within Florida is the second largest county.
In fact, here around Haines City, you'll find plenty of orange groves. But in the mid-2000s, the groves here came under attack from the Asian citrus psyllid, an insect smaller than a grain of rice that can infect citrus groves with a bacteria that causes something widely known as greening disease.
To the consumer, they expect a perfectly orange, round, beautiful citrus, which is what you've always had. But now not so much anymore, so it affected that economically. It also makes our fruit much smaller. Our oranges aren't as big today as they once were.
The problem is not a new one, with some groves infected well over a decade. Some growers switched to alternative crops such as blueberries or peaches. Others have remained vigilant. Some groves are now under protective screens to keep the insect out. Researchers are looking at ways to breed resistance into orange trees. One solution may be crossing oranges with something resistant to greening.
If we're able to take a tangerine and an orange, mix them together, and the tree is no longer susceptible to citrus greening, there we go. We have a good solution to start us backing up. The juice won't taste much different. It'll have more of an intense color, but not so much a flavor difference, which is really good for the consumer because we are known for our orange juice.
State citrus production is forecast to rise 76% in 2019. However, that's partly because Hurricane Irma hurt groves here in 2017. Mother Nature and greening disease provided a double punch to the livelihood of local farmers. But Abby says these growers have seen difficult times in the past and made it through.
You get knocked down, but you get back up again. That's, to me, the best part of being in the farming industry. Nothing's going to hold these guys down. It's in their blood, it's in their genetics. They're not going to stop until they find a cure.
These orange groves still have challenges, but they're making a comeback, creating a strong citrus industry here in Polk County. Reporting from Haines City, Florida, for AgDay, I'm Andrew McCrae.
Thanks, Andrew. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in, spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Rivas. Have a great day.